So at this time, as of early April,
Everything.
Okay, we can't hear you right now.
Ms. Lindsay, you seem to be muted. Oh, now you're back. No, now you're gone.
am I unmuted now?
Now you're
You're
unmuted.
good.
Okay, good.
I haven't, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how much of that you heard then. Um,
We heard you up until PPP.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was saying that as of early April, our estimation was that we were producing 25% of the city's PPE, the personal protection equipment, and have now produced over 1.2 million PPE items and counting. And this includes donations made to Brooklyn Medical Hospital, which was a donation of 10,095 masks. We've also produced face shields out of Bednark and Dugal in the Dugal Green Room, greenhouse, I'm sorry, that has now donated to, or not donated, has been sent over to hospitals, including Brooklyn Hospital. We have uh, Flushing Hospital Medical Center, Hospital for Special Surgery, Maimonides, Memorial Sloan Kettering, Montefiore, and Mount Sinai. At last we counted. So face shields and other PPE items produced on the yard have been used at all of those hospitals. Additionally, hand sanitizer and face masks have been, and gowns as well, both disposable and reusable, are being produced on the yard and being used in those hospitals. Um, we, in terms of securing PPE, or sorry, not PPE, PPP partnerships. So this is speaking to the Paycheck Protection Plan. We've been able to focus on helping our business obtain that funding and have worked with several financial partners to secure over 100 loans to date. And these loans should result in over thousands of local employees receiving what's estimated at millions of dollars in wages over the next 2 months. So we're quite happy about that. And this is in an effort, of course, to be able to make sure the businesses, the small businesses that operate on the yard, are able to stand back up and be able to start reemploying New Yorkers. So the Employment Center, which is the area that I lead, wanted to speak a little bit about some of those efforts. So we've maintained operations through COVID-19, and although operating remotely, we've been able to place over 75 individuals to date through March up until about last week, I think was our last count, and are now helping businesses who are preparing to bring back their workforce with HR related needs, as well as working on retooling programs for the summer that focuses on like the future workforce. So we have 30 internships for public university students living or studying in Brooklyn to date, and 100 work-based learning projects for the STEAM Center with the high school students. And just to talk about some of the efforts in the community briefly, some of yard tenants have been responsible for helping out with community resource efforts, particularly Rethink Foods that operates on the yard, has delivered over 100,000 meals to frontline workers and created the Restaurant Response Program. And that's the program that converted 15 restaurants into food commissaries that are now producing 9,000 meals a day. So wanted to just name that. And as always, we continue to support our partnerships with Myrtle Avenue Bid, Fort Greene, and Farragut Fresh Food Pantry, and they're currently storing food in the yard, and then they make weekly deliveries to our neighbors around the yard that are in need of food resources. So just wanted to share those updates. Was there any questions I can?
Yes, a couple quick questions. Earlier, we were talking about the resource fair, okay, for basically employment opportunities and also training. I believe we're going to put that off until later. Um, is it something that we can look at doing probably in the spring or summer of 2021? Is that still something we can look forward to doing with the Brooklyn Navy Yard? Especially
Yes,
for summer?
Denise, I'm not sure if she's on the call, but had reached out to us, and we were looking forward to that partnership as well. Um, Obviously, for obvious reasons, like you said, now may not be the best time to move forward with that, being that a lot of businesses need some time to retool and reopen, and then additionally the social distancing. But for sure, we were thinking that. I'm glad to hear you actually say that timeline. That's further out than I thought you might suggest. But yes, we look forward to that, and I think we should be able to accommodate that, and should give us enough time to be able to have enough employers and neighborhood and businesses be able to participate.
Beautiful. And Regina, I got another question for you too. It was so good to hear that you're actually placing people still, as far as jobs. Where are you placing them? Just out of curiosity.
So, as I mentioned, we had probably uh, maybe about 40 yard businesses convert during this time to start producing PPE. So this includes our larger employees, like I mentioned, Bednark and Dugal, but we've also had our fashion designers start making gowns and masks, and people who reupholstered make things. So we really try to make sure those that ramped up need for workforce went first to folks in the community. So the face shields at Bednark, in addition to Dugal and Bednark having their own staff work on the lines and continue to work through that, we had about 30 folks from the community also work on that line, and they're working through mid-July. We've had people, seamstresses, go and start making gowns. We've had people who are operating, we have a couple of folks who are doing supply chain fulfillment, and we had warehouse workers and folks go through there. So it's been a variety of places that have needed. We have a vitamin. Many folks might have heard of Care of, the kind of customized vitamin mail-in order. They have been, obviously, wellness is top of mind for a lot of folks. So they've been working through this. We've had about 35 or 40 folks work there. So we've been finding pockets where there's opportunity to connect that to the community.
And you mentioned future employment opportunities.
Yes, as we're starting to see a bit of an uptick in businesses thinking about reopening, and so we continue to do to make sure the community is aware of those opportunities. We have started a community newsletter that goes out to about 8,000 residents every week, and that has resources both for wellness, food, but of course employment. We're doing a resume workshop tomorrow. We're going to try to do virtually our information sessions that we used to do weekly on Tuesdays to invite new folks to register in. We're going to start doing that, but for right now we're doing that by telephone and registering people in, and then scheduling one-on-one appointments and to screen them and get them placed.
That's very good. Are you sending the letter to the committee board itself, the board office?
I don't think so, to be frank, but I'm happy to do that. We just started, so I'm trying to find out. It's going to Myrtle Avenue, it goes to like Fulton Avenue bid. It's going as many places as people tell me it wants to go. So I have your email now, because you're copied on one of the emails. I can definitely make sure it gets in your hands. And if there's anyone else that on the board who needs to be connected, please just include them in a CC, and I'll make sure they start to receive that as well.
Okay, what I'm going to do now is opening up to the committee and board members. If anyone has a question, do me a favor, please. If you go over your name, okay, you'll see a little hand, okay? Click on the hand, it'll raise your hand, and as I see your hand raised, I'll pick you. So if anyone wants to ask a question, please do that. Seeing no hands raising.
Not working.
It's not working?
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. Is that you, Lindsay?
Bill,
Okay. Lindsay?
hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, is this Miss Peterson?
It is she, yes.
Ms. Peterson, do you have any questions?
I have a couple of questions, well, comment and a question. So I think the community newsletter is great, and I would love to see what that looks like. I'm sure it looks wonderful and substantive, and certainly it could be an asset to us for our up and coming in the future resource fair. I'm assuming we'll be able to collaboratively print through that newsletter. Is that correct, Regina? Something that could happen?
Yes, I think, as Bill mentioned, if we are targeting sometime in the spring or summer of 21,
Yeah.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
definitely, have enough build up to get to that point and use we found the newsletter. This is our first time communicating directly to candidates in the community this way. And we're pretty pleased with the click rate and the responses we've been given. The folks signing up for the information sessions and things that we're offering. So certainly we can use that as a platform to advertise.
Mm-hmm. The second is that your resume workshop that you're going to be trying out tomorrow virtually, is that something I can sign on to? I just want to see. I have nothing to, not to contribute anything, but I just would like to see how it actually works.
Sure. As long as you keep in mind it's our first one, but no, yeah, sure, we can.
No. I'm not critiquing. I'm just.
No, I'm
kidding.
I'm kidding. Of course. I will. I'll send you. I have your contact, so I'll after we conclude here, I'll send you a link to register. But I'll send you both the last newsletter so that you can also see what else is in there in the resource library that we recently set up that kind of houses all things related to looking for a job and all of that. So I'll send all of that information to you. If there's any questions, let me know.
Okay, so just one last question. Does the community newsletter, how does it get to the community? Is there a mailing process, or how do you get it into the community?
Via email. So we're currently using MailChimp, but basically weekly, anyone who is registered in our database or has registered since we've gone remote automatically is registered to receive that community newsletter. And if they want to opt out, they certainly can. But so far, we've only had 2 people, so that's pretty good. I opt out of things every week, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
Ms.
great.
Einhorn?
Thank you.
Sure.
Lindsey Einhorn, did you have a question?
I was just curious if your employment relationship with Wegmans has continued.
So it has not continued, but because it was just the initial agreement was to do it before they opened and have that kind of advance for every time they were hiring on for the initial staff. Wegmans retention is pretty strong, so fortunately they don't really need us that often. They've retained a little over 90% of their workforce since openings, which is amazing. But they are pretty busy on Instacart. They actually, this store, not surprisingly, in the city, is their highest in Instacart sales. So we are in the process of talking about creating an additional warehouse space. And if that happens, we plan to continue a relationship to make sure that those opportunities are offered as well.
That's great.
Any other questions?
Mhm.
Okay. Since I can't see anyone's hands being raised.
I see someone trying to get attention. Catherine?
Sorry to interrupt. Denise, can you just repeat your question on Wegmans? My service went out right as you were asking it, and I heard the answer, but I just want to make sure I get your question.
The question was if the employment relationship with Wegmans has continued beyond the initial hiring.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. I put myself on grid view so I can see everyone now. Okay. Is there any other questions from anyone from the committee? Okay, seeing no additional questions, I'm going to say thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate what you have said to us. I'm glad to see the Navy Yard is actually very active still and still employing people, and still, the job center is still working very efficiently. Good. Thank you very much for coming on, and if you wish, you can stay for a little while longer for the rest of the time.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm going to basically give you an update on the business improvement districts in CB2. For the most part, everyone's working from home. So I've sent out a bunch of emails, telephone messages to individuals. Some of them have gotten back to me, some of them have not. What we're looking at right now is most of the business improvement districts are on hold. They're reaching out to different employers in the area, also different properties, and finding out what their needs are. Currently, right now, one of the things they were doing is also offering help or assistance in PPE, sorry, for PPP, for those individuals who are looking to get loans for PPE, for PPP. Currently, right now, that is a touch and go situation. What I've noticed in having discussions is the larger companies, especially the financial ones, have already received money in the first groups of funds that went out. Some of the smaller ones are being approved, but may not have yet received their funds yet. Others are still waiting to hear. So that's where we are with that. As far as the bid managers, I'm talking with them. They're all looking at basically trying to keep functioning, but they're trying to function as best they can from working from their home locations. They are still reaching out to the businesses that are open and are trying to have lists of businesses such as the restaurants that are currently open and available to do takeout. So that currently there are lists like that if you go to the different bid websites. So if you go to the bid website, it will list what companies are open and which ones are doing delivery, so forth and so on. I think we're probably going to start seeing those openings happen sooner rather than later, now that we're starting to see opening across the board as far as New York City is concerned. Probably hopefully by mid-month. Keep in touch with the different websites and we'll give you a better update. But for right now, wait and see. Okay. As far as the budgets are concerned, the budgets are pretty much fixed. Okay, I was talking to board office, Mr. Paris, and Mr. Paris explained to me the assessments are going to be collected by the city, then dispersed. So for right now, their budgets are pretty much fixed. Going forward, I don't know what the situation will be with that, but I don't think they will actually. There has not been any historic reasons to increase those numbers. If that should change, find out. Okay. As far as myself, I'm also currently giving my chairperson's report right now. What I've noticed currently right now is I've gone to a few meetings for different agencies and different, and for the most part, people are they've adjusted very well after the first couple of weeks, kind of like us doing right now with this WebEx. Okay, trial and error, some mistakes are made, but for the most part, it's still business as usual. People are working from home, the ones that can. I noticed that a lot of supermarkets have opened up. Some of the major stores are open for different reasons, mostly for food. Some essential businesses are open, for instance, hardware stores, things along those lines. But a lot of the other stores are closed and are still remaining closed. I don't know what's going to happen in the near future, but hopefully when everything opens back up, things go back to some type of normal. Things are going to change across the board. I'm not going to be the same as it was, but it's not going to be like it is right now. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Jessica?
Yeah, I wanted to ask back on the bids. I know that with the citywide Open Streets initiative, there was some initial talk about having the bids manage the open streets in the area, or to have them as a potential manager for those. Do we know if that's happening in our district?
I'm going to mention the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership is moving forward with some of those initiatives.
Okay.
Where they are with those initiatives, I don't know. Okay. Mr. Paris, do you have any input on that?
So the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership had a bit of a head start in that they already had the shared streets sort of around Jay and Lawrence and Willoughby.
Yeah.
So they essentially just upgraded those from shared streets to the open street program. I know that there are some other bids that have looked at locations where they might participate in the program, and some have even submitted plans to DOT. But it seems like the DOT review can take some time. I also know of a couple of neighborhood associations that have put in proposals that have not moved forward. It seems that the proposals that get approved most quickly are the ones that are proposed by the police precinct.
Are the ones that are proposed by who? I'm sorry.
The police precinct, the 8-4 and the 8-8.
Okay.
The other issue that we might see is currently because of spacing, we may see sidewalk cafes, a lot of applications for those. So the restaurants can actually expand their service area by moving out to the sidewalks where applicable. I don't know where we are with that. Mr. Paris, I know a lot of restaurants are trying to do that, but I don't know how many have actually applied to the board office.
There is an introduction at the city council. It has not been approved yet. You know, proprietors of restaurants and bars are so desperate to improve their income that I've heard from a number of restaurants that are legal in their space because the space is grandfathered in, but they're located in residential districts, and from the legislation, it appears that they would not be able to open a sidewalk cafe even under the relaxed rules. The only places, the only thing that they would be able to get sort of some relief from is on sidewalk width. And if you're not eligible now, you would be eligible under the new legislation, which, as I said, still hasn't been passed yet.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, any other questions? Jessica, we can't hear you.
Sorry. This is not a question so much as it's just a comment on what was just said. I'm just thinking ahead for the summertime and thinking of that New Yorkers, we're going to need spaces to be outside as much as possible. And I know, whatever we can do as far as being community members to support those types of initiatives, like the Open Streets Initiative or the sidewalk cafes, I think that would go a long way right now.
I agree. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Next on the agenda is a discussion about the statements of community district needs and also the budget request for fiscal year 2022. Let me ask a question. I'm pretty sure because of the short notice, most of us have had a chance to really go into depth with that. Okay. Based on that, my suggestion to the committee is this. I'd like to have a working group because this will be the last meeting we have before summer recess. So we have today and that's it. So with that in mind, I'd like to get together a working group of individuals who would be interested in working on this so we can have something to present to the exec committee in September. Okay. I've already reached out to a few committee members and they've agreed. Yearwood, also Lindsey, okay. They both have already said yes, okay, to that. Is there anyone else who would like to volunteer?
I'm happy to volunteer as well.
I'll also be on board also to, if someone myself for the co-chair. Okay. If anyone has, do me a favor. There was an email sent out by the board office that basically gave us the information, a link to statement of district needs and also budget requests. Please review that. If anyone has any comments they would like to include for us to look over in the working group, by all means, please do that. You can send your information to either the board office or to me. My email is bill, B-I-L-L, Flanoy, that's F as in Frank, L-O-U-N-O-Y, at gmail.com. And I'll make sure that the working group can actually look it over and actually include any comments you have. If anyone else is interested, please let me know also. Okay. With that, okay, did we all get the opportunity to look over the minutes of March 3rd, 2020? I saw your hand raised. You good?
I thought you asked, we're asking if we got to look over the minutes. I did, so I raised my, sorry.
Okay, excellent. No problem. No problem. Okay. Any corrections, changes, comments? Okay, hearing none. Okay, we'll approve them as is. Again, my chairperson's report. Any other business? Committee members. Okay. Community forum. This is going to be interesting because some of you have dialed in and I don't have a name. Okay. Do we have anything from the community? Community forum, anyone who would like to speak at this moment? I see no hands going up and I see no one waving. Okay. With that in mind, okay, I will now take request a motion to adjourn. Okay. 1, 2, okay. All in favor? Right, beautiful. Okay, so 6:40. It is so good to see all your faces. I am so happy to see my committee still here and active. That's a wonderful thing, even though a lot of you aren't in the city, but that's okay. Okay, but it's all good to see you all. Please stay safe, enjoy your summer, okay, and keep in contact. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Good
Right.
night. Take care, everyone.